I'd like to call up our esteemed panel. If you can come and join us.
Yes, while we are waiting, and my name is Lejla Vajzovic. I am a practicing retina specialist. I'm truly honored to share the stage with Julie.
Julie Schallhorn, I'm a cornea specialist at the University of California, San Francisco, and also honored to share the stage with Lejla.
Thank you, Julie. While our panelists are taking seat, and we'll ask them to introduce themselves a little later, we'll also ask our keynote speaker to come join them, and Khizer Khaderi. We have a pleasure of having him here and to talk about the AI gold rush, the matter of perception. Thank you.
Can sit or stand, up to you.
Okay. Oh, I'm ready to go. All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. And I guess we're ready to rock and roll. So glad you guys are still here at this time. It's going to get exciting, as the announcer had mentioned before, the other colleague, is that, you know, it's a hot topic. And I'm really honored to be here. So the AI gold rush, a matter of perception. You know, the research is supported by, you know, these are the disclosures. I have no financial interest in this topic. A little bit about myself, my background. I'm the head of the Stanford Human Perception Lab. I'm a neuroophthalmic surgeon by training. I'd like to say also a technologist and a pragmatic futurist. So I can talk to you way about like 50 years, what's going to happen. But, you know, I think everyone here is like, what's going to happen in the next, you know, 5 years or so if we could look at a crystal ball. So knowledge has power. It controls access to opportunity and advancement. We all know what caused the access. Artificial intelligence was here well before OpenAI and ChatGPT. What they did really well with ChatGPT was made it easy for anyone to harness the power of AI. So how is it being used? It's being used cross-sector. So you'll see it in education with new personalized teaching. You'll see it in productivity with some of Microsoft's new Office suites. And you'll see it also in new types of personal assistants that will be in the wearables that, you know, you might be wearing here today. But the real question is, are we building Skynet or are we building Jarvis? Depends on who we put in control. For those of you who don't know what Skynet is, it has to deal with Terminator, the movie. Sadly, I think some folks here are probably too young to even know what Terminator, the movie was. Jarvis is with Iron Man, so, all right. So if we just kind of look at sentiment in the US, you know, 31% of Americans, and this is from the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI. This is the AI index. You can go on, and this is publicly available. But what they showed was that 31% of Americans think AI will make our life and society better. It's not a bad amount. But then you'll see these types of tweets. How many here, raise of hand, think what this person thinks? Humans doing the hard jobs on minimum wage while the robots write poetry and paint is not the future I wanted. There we go. All right. Thank you for raising your hand. We're actually, from a sentiment, like overall, we're in the bottom third, along with countries like Germany, France, Canada, and the Netherlands. If you look at the top, you'll see countries like China, Saudi Arabia, India, Peru. So when you think about it, you have to look at society. What is the populace thinking in terms of artificial intelligence? And then the other thing you think about is where are the opportunities as well? The opportunities might be if you're working on some type of artificial intelligence to go to those societies early on as first markets and then come to the US as things kind of move. So these are some things to just kind of keep in mind. So I don't think the future is going to look like the Terminator. I think it's going to be either Jarvis or Wall-E. So it's a matter of if we design AI that's going to be collaborative and will help us, or it's going to be consumptive. Collaborative is more human-centered. Consumptive is more technology-centered. So AI and vision, decoding the possibilities. If you look at the private investment in AI in 2021 and 2022, the highest investment in sector was in healthcare. And if you break it down across healthcare systems, pharma, med tech, it's in 2 areas where you see about 30% of the focus in terms of applications. And that involves computer vision and natural language processing in terms of text understanding, which kind of makes sense when you think about EMRs and other types of like diagnostic reports and things that you want to get. It's kind of a combination of the 2. And this is an important slide in the sense that, it's showing that if you adopt, you will see some incremental improvement in your bottom line. You know, it can be, you know, when you think about reduction of costs and increase in revenue, that's what a lot of people here would like to hear, right? And those that have adopted, they'll see, you know, at the very least, those that have adopted about a 5% or so increase, and up to like a 30% reduction in cost. When we think about ophthalmology, you kind of put it in 3 buckets in terms of advancements in applications. Diagnosis and early detection, such as IDX, treatment optimization and management, glaucoma workflow, preventive and systemic disease prediction. This is some of the research coming out of Moorfields with the NHS, and, you know, where they're looking at not just, you know, screening in terms of eye disease, but also correlating that with different types of systemic conditions in terms of like ischemic strokes and cardiovascular disease and Parkinson's. And so when you know, the way I kind of look at this is just like we're bucketing certain types of areas, whether it's for provider focus or consumer focus. You know, when I think about patients, I kind of use the term consumer because at the end of the day, our patients are consumers and they kind of expect that same experience, whether they're out like at a restaurant or in a healthcare environment. So Dr. Eric Topol just recently had a very great quote. In terms of adoption, have to have compelling, great data to change medical practice and to exude confidence that this is the way to go. Whether you're focusing your technology or investments on a consumer-facing or a provider-facing, it really has to, you have to kind of peel the onion a little bit in the sense of going, well, what data sets did we use? You know, who is this actually focused to? Is this a highly critical task that we're trying to automate that we should keep a human in the loop? Or is this like a lower end task that, you know, you don't really have to worry too much about in terms of automation? These are some of the things that, you know, we need to think about, because at the end of the day, it comes back to trust. Is like, you know, when we think about scientific literature, I mean, anyone, you know, we look at peer-reviewed articles because we trust them, because our peers have reviewed it. We have to kind of take similar types of methodologies in terms of what type of AI we adopt, what type we implement. And, you know, this was a study recently about FDA-regulated AI algorithms. It's really interesting because the majority of these, about 80% of them, were on population sizes and data of less than 500 people. And, you know, 1 out of 118 in the AI ML group were actually disclosed geographic and racial segmentation. So when you think about biases and stuff, it's not a one type of algorithm fits all. And so these are some of the things to kind of keep in mind. Speaking of the FDA, so Dr. Jeffrey Shuren, who's the chief of medical devices, had an interesting thought in terms of new approaches. One new approach could be building labs where developers could access vast amounts of data and build or test AI programs, right? Levels the playing field a little bit, and at the same time allows you to kind of test in a more controlled environment before coming out to out commercially. And so we just published a paper recently that kind of exemplifies kind of this process. Like in terms of developers, I'm actually looking outside of just healthcare developers. And that, you know, it's one of the things I want to challenge everyone here with is like, hey, in terms of innovation, sometimes it's kind of looking over at what our neighbors are doing. And in this sense, what if our developers were in game development? And so this publication was actually screening the top eye conditions using existing games, not creating a gamified test, because no one likes really taking tests. But if you're playing the games or doing what you normally do, and you kind of infuse the technology in, it's that much more impactful. And we also introduced the Vision Performance Index. Dr. Chambers on the panel right before was talking about, different types of markers, some that are more real world, outside of just static testing. So the Vision Performance Index involves cognitive, visual, and motor function metrics. And it can be deployed into any type of software application. So what we're doing at the Stanford Human Perception Lab is the Human Perception Project. So it's kind of interesting what Dr. Shuren had said about, hey, why don't we create these labs where you can get a large amount of data? And so what we're looking at is helping researchers around the globe solve global health issues by creating the world's largest biometric and psychometric repository. This will involve concepts like decentralized collaboration, and also the concept of data donorship, where individuals, just like they donate blood, if they're playing games, just to give you a number, over 3.2 billion people on this planet play video games. That's why I'm so adamant there. So imagine if just a fraction play some of this, we would have the largest database involving psychometrics, vision, cognitive, motor, which is really some of the new markers here. And this is approach. I'm in the Apple ecosystem, the Apple approach to gaming. Basically, you can access games that have this API in it, and you can capture data just passively. So this is a video game. It's a very simple type of video game. And afterwards, we passively captured a couple hundred psychometrics. And if they allow, we could also get multimodal data in terms of camera data as well. So I leave you with the thought process is that it's an exciting time. I think ophthalmology has already been kind of leading it when you think about the first FDA-approved technology. I'm really excited to kind of turn it over to my colleagues here.
Thank you, Khizer. That was outstanding. Come join us, please. We're going to go to our next talk on AI generative, and Vivek Natarajan, please join us up there.
And I have to say a big, big thank you to Vivek. He is not an ophthalmologist. He is a researcher at Google, and I cold called him to come after I read his amazing paper in Nature. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, and thank you so much, everyone, for having me over here. A bit more about me. I broadly lead research at the intersection of AI and biomedicine at Google. So I grew up in India, and in some of the nearby towns and villages that I was growing up in, for many people, going to see a doctor was simply not an option. It often meant like walking 30, 40 miles in extreme heat, giving up on food, or going without a day's wages. So I knew many people who had not seen a doctor in their entire lifetimes, and it bothered me. I really wanted to do something about this. And so when I was in my final year in undergrad, I was building this app called Ask the Doctor Anytime, Anywhere. And this is a decade back. But unfortunately, the technology and AI for such an app to exist was just not there. And what do I mean by that? So if you look at the kind of phones that people had back in the day, smartphones were not ubiquitous. I had a Nokia 1100, and it was very little things that you could do with it. And data and internet connectivity was just not there. And then the kind of machine learning and AI that you need to enable an app such as this that I was envisaging was just not there yet. But I'm pleased to say that the arc of progress in technology and AI, it kind of allows us to dream of that future again. A future where medical information, world-class medical information and medical expertise is available at the fingertip of billions of people worldwide. And in particular, I think the progress in AI has been simply outstanding. I mean, you all have been interacting with ChatGPT and GPT-4, and hopefully some of the Google variants as well, like Palm and Bard. And no offenses if you haven't. But as you can see, when you interact with these models, you see that these models are like a very smart friend of yours. They can talk to you about physics and philosophy and politics and Penrose theorem, just like a very smart 200 IQ friend of yours would do. But if you have a medical concern or if you need medical advice, do you go to that smart friend? No, right? You go to someone who has rigorous medical training and is licensed to practice medicine. And so similarly, when we want to use AI in medical applications and in clinical workflows, should we use general purpose AI systems? I think the answer is no. I think we want AI systems that have undergone rigorous medical training, similar to what clinicians do, and are aligned to the values and practice of medicine. And so that is what we have been doing at Google over the past several years, and especially in the last year and a half. And the project that we have undertaken, we call that sending AI models to medical school. And this has in turn resulted in our models such as MedPalm, and more recently earlier this year, MedPalm 2. So MedPalm 2 was the first AI system that achieved near expert test taker performance on representative USMLE questions. And perhaps more excitingly, when we did a side-by-side comparison between MedPalm 2 answers and physician-generated answers, a panel of physicians in a blinded comparison actually preferred MedPalm 2 answers over physician answers on 8 of the different 9 axes that we had in this study. But again, doing well on the USMLE does not necessarily make you a doctor, and so I want to be very clear about that. But nevertheless, this was very exciting progress. And then we realized that medicine is inherently multimodal in nature. So when we look at clinicians, they are not only talking to you in language and clinical language, but they're also routinely interpreting medical records, medical images, and increasingly new modalities of data are coming online, such as genomics. And so we want our AI systems to be able to do the same as well. And so we did that. We added multimodal capabilities to MedPalm. And in particular, this model was the first demonstration of a generalist biomedical AI system, a single AI system that's able to encode and interpret multiple different biomedical data modalities at the same time with the same set of model weights, and reaches SOTA specialist performance, state-of-the-art performance on a wide variety of tasks. So this is great, and undoubtedly, all this work over the last several months has received a lot of attention. But at the same time, at Google, we believe in not just bold innovation, but also responsible innovation. And so we did not necessarily, as some of our competitors or our peers, if I were to put it the other way, have done, just make these models available just in the wild. Rather, we've been working with a select group of some of the biggest care delivery, life sciences, and academic institutions, and trying to understand what are the use cases of these models, as well as getting feedback on the failure modes and limitations. And I'm pleased to say that we made a lot of progress over the last several months, and with that, we have iterated on the models further. And next month, we are going to be making MedPalm 2 model generally available to everyone. And so all this progress is great, but what is the North Star vision over here? And this comes back to what I was telling you at the beginning over here. Our North Star vision is an AI doctor that hopefully we can put in the fingertips of billions of people worldwide. But at the same time, in the process of building this AI doctor and encoding the entire biomedical universe, I think what we are going to end up getting is not just a doctor, but a world-class AI physician scientist, a model that's going to help us understand biology better as a trajectory in an n-dimensional space. It will be able to tell us what happens when we intervene with, say, specific therapies, help design better therapies, and hopefully help us scale personalized medicine to everyone, billions of people worldwide. So that is the North Star vision. And I think the most exciting part is this is no longer science fiction anymore. And obviously, when such a powerful technology comes to fruition, there are a lot of questions around it. But I'm very, very confident that we as a society can grapple and answer. And with that, I'll stop and hand it over to the next panelist.
Thank you so much. Up next, we would like to invite Kester Nahen from Notal Vision to join us to discuss screening, the role of AI in screening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lejla and Julie, for the opportunity to give an update on the role that AI plays in early disease diagnosis. We're focusing our services on the early detection of conversion from dry to wet AMD. Perhaps a few words about Notal Vision and who we are. We are part of a new vertical in the healthcare system in that we are a digital healthcare provider that provides home monitoring services to physicians and allow them to extend their care to the patient's home. Part of our services are patient self-operated devices that patients can use to test their vision or acquire structural images. You may have heard of the home OCT that's investigation right now and under review by the FDA. We are also using AI to then process this daily data that patients are acquiring, and we're informing physicians whenever we see changes in the data that require that patient to be seen in the office setting. Part of the service are also patient engagement services because we need to make sure that patients use these devices really on a regular basis to acquire actionable data. Now, the unmet need in the management of wet AMD is really early diagnosis. We have great drugs that allow to preserve vision, but unless a patient really gets diagnosed early with good functional vision, they'll not be able to maintain that. In the real world, unfortunately, only a third of patients get diagnosed with functional vision. Now, if we add a remote monitoring tool like the FRCS Home platform, that's a Medicare-covered service, to the standard of care, we see that 84% of patients can be diagnosed while they still have functional vision, which sets them up for a successful treatment journey. We've done a 10-year follow-up study now that has shown that actually 82% of patients maintain that functional vision over on average 3 years of therapy. And this is really real-world data. So AI works and improves care in real world. Now, the test that we're using uses preferential high-acuity perimetry that identifies distortions that are indicative of a conversion to wet AMD. A patient that has intermediate AMD and a visual acuity of 20/60 or better and gets referred to our service receives a device from us, then establish a visual field baseline, and then is asked to use that device on a daily basis. This is where the AI comes in and performs a trend-based analysis, and if we're seeing changes that are characteristic of a conversion, we then inform a point of contact at the practice that referred the patient to us, and the patient is asked to be seen for an exam. If there is a conversion detected, then the patient goes forward to treatment while they have still good vision. But in many instances, there is actually no conversion detected. And at first, this was sort of seen as a nuisance of this type of diagnostic tool. But Alan Ho has shown in a sub-analysis of this 10-year data set that these non-exudative alerts actually indicate a twofold increased risk of a future conversion, which means these patients need to be seen more frequently in an office setting. So on both paths, there's really a significant impact that the AI has on the patient management. In closing, I want to thank the 3,300 physicians and 1,400 practices in the United States that are referring patients to our Notal Vision Monitoring Center, as well as to our lead investors. And if you have interest and would like to refer patients to our service, please scan the QR code. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kester, for giving us a little bit of an overview of early diagnosis patients. Now we're going to move to more of an image analysis with Kaushal Solanki from EyeNuk. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kaushal Solanki, founder and CEO at EyeNuk. And I've been asked to talk about image analysis, which happens to be my background as well. So EyeNuk is an AI digital health company on a mission to move the world to predictive and preventative healthcare and create a new diagnostic standard using retinal imaging AI. And I'll tell you why we believe so. So we are talking about image analysis. And as I was doing my PhD, we all believe and know that a picture is worth 1,000 words. But when I moved and founded EyeNuk back in 2010, no one was talking about AI in healthcare. Very few groups were doing this, especially with modern technologies like deep learning. And so the new belief is that with AI, a picture is worth 1,000 diagnostic tools. And we have seen a number of conditions, not just vision-threatening diseases like diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, AMD, and the like, but also systemic diseases where markers can be seen in the eye. And then AI is the only way to interpret these things. And research from academic institutions or other companies show that things like age, gender, all these things can be seen through retinal images. So we dream of a new diagnostic standard that uses non-invasive retinal imaging. So if we take a step back as to how can AI help healthcare providers, and I'll give you my take on it. So first one is what I call spell check AI. AI works in the background like you're doing your regular work, or you're driving your car and it's a lane keeping assist, and checks for errors in the background, just like spell check. Another way this can help is to automate routine work. So it's a robot that can automate your routine work, freeing up your time to do more important things. And then it goes beyond to what I'd like to call a superpower AI. It can do things that you cannot do today. The physicians cannot do today by giving metrics, analytics, or it's very tedious to do today. And that's very much possible with AI. And how do we translate this to actual products? And that'll be very interesting to hear. So we have an offering called iScreen that works in the background for screening services or for diagnostic services that have a current way of doing things. And we put AI in the background, flagging errors, and they can correct themselves, much like spell check. Then we have our flagship product called IART, which is an autonomous AI. It can detect disease or detect, currently cleared for diabetic retinopathy in a fully autonomous manner so that this screening can happen at the point of care in primary care clinics and the like, where there are these patients going a lot more frequently. So now a retina specialist or ophthalmologist can see those patients where they can actually do something to treat their diseases. And then finally, we move into this IMAR called Superpower AI that can look at smallest of changes that happen between successive visits. So now we are in a world where patients are getting screened frequently, their images are being taken frequently, and tools can take us, find smallest of changes, turn them into biomarkers that can correlate with future progression of diseases. And now we are adding diseases to these frameworks. So, we have diabetic retinopathy, AMD, and glaucoma available as a spell check AI. We have diabetic retinopathy available as an autonomous AI globally, including the US. And we have AMD and glaucoma also approved in Europe as a class 2 MDR. And we are looking at bringing monitoring of diseases like AMD, glaucoma, and other conditions. And we are also at earlier stage of research on Alzheimer's risk or cardiovascular risk and say chronic kidney diseases and things like that. So specifically talking about the first indication that we focused on, which is diabetic retinopathy, it is cleared by the US FDA as it's currently the first and only fully automated detection system for both more than mild and vision-threatening conditions with excellent clinical results in a prospective multi-center clinical trial, achieving 96% and 97% sensitivity with very high imageability as well. So most of the patients are getting actionable reports. Separately, this has also been validated in some of the largest AI in healthcare studies, including a study of over 100,000 patients in 400 US clinics. This system is also FDA cleared as the first and only system that works with multiple fundus cameras, and that goes back to our mission of reaching everybody with, if we can support multiple fundus cameras, we can reach more patients. And IART is also the first and only AI system to be cleared as a class 2B MDR in Europe for automatic detection of DR, AMD, and glaucomatous optic nerve damage. So what does it translate to the real world? And I'm here happy to say that we are being used in 27 countries from 5 continents. Tens of thousands of patients have received diagnosis of vision-threatening conditions, and they were referred for something to be done about it. So with that, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I'd like to welcome up Dr. Chong to talk about AI in pharma.
Right, thank you. I didn't got time to get through the J&J lawyers, so I'm actually going to speak as an academic rather than as a J&J employee. But you know how it's like in big pharma. So this is my financial disclosure. So just like that, when we're talking about AI, so first ask ChatGPT, so that's really helpful that you can actually focus on the talk quite quickly. And so if you just do the same, just go, Pharm and AI in ChatGPT, they will give you a list. Now, again, obviously that I was given 4 minutes, so, just read through that would take longer than 4 minutes. So I kind of thought, let's just go to the more traditional Google search, and I see you've got a big list, so, okay, right. And again, pharma go to kind of like more the analyst side of the thing, and I thought this is appropriate in this environment. So as you can see there, that there was like a lot of startup, and then a lot of tech company, and then a lot of farm company. So everyone are in this and have been doing it for quite some time. Now, because as I say, there's only got a few minutes, so I want to focus on a few areas that I'm personally interested in. Again, this have not went through J&J lawyers, so this is not J&J. This is just me as an academic. So in drug development, I think a lot of talk about AI and all these things. You need to think about that, we need to have data. Because, to predict a drug that can be successful to be launched is really too far-fetched to a certain extent. But, like we're starting to have a lot of omic data. Historically, we look at genomic data that we have identified complement as a potential target. And similarly, that there's now multiple collaboration between, genomic, phenomic, metabolomic, proteinomic, and all these things are very complex, but we can link them together. And again, adding with the single-cell sequencing, that become a reality in identify potential pathway. Another fun thing to a certain extent for drug developer is the 3D structure. In the old day, we need to go crystalline, more picture, and it sometimes takes quite a long time. But at least now that we have done a lot of those, and then we can figure out how to work out the molecular 3D structure. And again, I don't know we're still a Google company. DeepMind have done a lot of phenomenal work on that area. And again, it's something that really helped to think about that. And to me, is that as a drug developer, you can now really kind of look at the molecule, the 3D structure, and then actually try to design your small molecule. Historically, that is you the antibody because you're slightly more direct switch, and usually small molecule have a lot of side effect and also a lot of hitting a lot of off target. So at least that now that because we actually know quite a lot of things, there's some molecule that will have a downstream targeting problem. And then now you can design molecule that really fix those problems. Not only able to improve the chances of success, but you also can predict the off-target prediction, metabolite prediction, and all this will reducing the animal use for preclinical toxicology. In clinical development, I usually don't believe that you can actually help to identify clinical sites. We always think that, well, I know all my retinal specialist friends, I know who they are, and so on. But again, increasingly evident to show that we can still identify a site more than some of the experts can do. And more importantly, now that we can identify patients within a clinical site, and all the software are done locally, and they read through the images, they read through the EHR, and all that can make recruitment much faster. However, that iPhone news is always the downer. They always say that we had failure, and then a lot of hype all fail. But you need to bear in mind that on average, the success rate of a phase 1 molecule to approval is about 7%. So yes, you might be overpromised a bit, but so far, iPhone news were talking about 3 failure. to think about it this way is if we can improve the success rate to 14%, that will be already saved billions. And so my take-home message is everyone is doing it. Will take a while to see success. And I think that Dr. Ehrenfeld has mentioned about physician and AI, and I paraphrase this, and thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Thank you so, so much. Do you want to join us up here?
No, John?
So we've heard a lot of talk about regulatory approvals. Malvina, I know that you shepherded that process for ophthalmology through the FDA. What advice do you have for all the budding AI companies out there as they think about regulatory hurdles that they'll face when they get their products out?
It's on.
Thank you. You are correct in that there are a lot of companies getting into the space. What I suggest that everybody takes a minute and thinks about where they want to end up before they jump into it with both feet. FDA, over the last couple of years, we have truly delineated the paradigm for the regulation of AI and simplified it so that it is really easy to understand. Recently, we posted something called Digital Health Navigator. So now the very first step that I would suggest is for somebody who is not really experienced with getting through the regulatory process is to get online, and it's literally 7 steps. Anybody can do it, even your children. You can answer the questions on the Health Navigator. And the very first question that needs to be answered is it something that FDA needs to regulate? Because that is the key. We have, used a lot of regulatory discretions for things that we don't believe we need to get involved in or over-regulation. We're very, very supportive of innovation and trying to make sure that we expedite innovation in every which way that we can. So the very first step would be to make sure that you even need to go through FDA. I can keep talking.
I just have I have a follow-on question. So let's say, Vivek, that was amazing, your review of the doctor that anyone can access, via text message. Malvina, would you have to regulate that? Would that go through the FDA to be able to text a doctor? I don't even, that's beyond my conception of regulatory, actually.
No, you can text a doctor.
Okay.
So teleophthalmology is not something that FDA regulates. It's a practice of medicine.
Okay.
However, generative AI is a whole other topic.
Very good.
Wonderful, thank you. So just kind of touching base on some of the unique challenges and opportunities in the field of ophthalmology to make it obviously a very interesting area for AI innovation and investment. And I was hoping to hear from Rania. I know you've had quite a bit of experience in AI just in your career thus far. Where do you see kind of AI can help us in ophthalmology, and where should we think investing our efforts, but potentially funds too?
I didn't hear the last part of the question.
Where should we invest our efforts into developing? What areas of ophthalmology you think would be most beneficial?
Okay, hi, thank you for having me on the panel. There are several different areas that we should be investing in and implementing in clinical practice. I think one of the most exciting is the use of large language models in everyday, clinical workflow. I think that's really going to help the majority of ophthalmologists and sort of ease us into this transition of using AI more and more in the background. I actually loved, I think it was Kaushal who said, it should be a spell check AI. So I like that term because it's kind of like innocuous in the background. And for large language models, for instance, imagine when the way this is already being implemented, we're in practice seeing a patient, speaking with them. This is like an ambient scribe mechanism where it's actually dictating and taking notes for you and formulating a clinical note, which is saving us tremendous amounts of time. Plus, we're able to just converse with our patients much easier. And now think about doing contextual analysis of that note so that you could say, okay, now take that note and put it into patient education at a fifth grade level in I don't know, in Spanish, let's say. And so you now have immediate patient education form to give to your patient. I think that kind of work is really exciting for improving clinical workflow and management. And then, of course, I'm a huge fan of autonomous AI, and we saw this a couple of years ago when we implemented in Bascom cameras in primary care offices. We saw the screening rate for diabetic retinopathy go from 40% to 82% in downtown Miami, which has no means of shortage of ophthalmologists. But we also saw 50% pathology. There was 50% of patients walking around who didn't realize they had pathology. So when you think about preventative care, this is really kind of an obvious thing that we should all be implementing and embracing a whole lot more within the guardrails that Malvina puts up for us.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, please.
It's just like a perfect setup.
Alley-oop.
So what Rania mentioned is, the increase in diabetic retinopathy screening as a result of introduction of AI is one of the goals that we are assessing is how does the AI impact health equity? And we're right now actually in the middle, 3/4 way done, of a project. We funded a project and we're doing research in collaboration with American Academy of Ophthalmology and Verana Health to actually look at the real world evidence data in iris to try to assess the impact of introduction of AI on diabetic retinopathy screening on equity. So we're very excited about that because we truly believe that ophthalmology and AI are a way to address health equity. As you know, AAO's task force on disparities in eye care identified and created for us a roadmap of how to address health inequities with vision care. And one of the recommendations was increasing utility of teleophthalmology, which AI is truly set for. Now, it's totally hot off the press. We just granted Collaborative Community of Ophthalmic Imaging, or CCOI, another very large funding through a funding mechanism, a grant to study the impact on what we call the invisible population. So, with AI, now not only can we look at the patients that have been captured in the databases before, like we did in iris, but now AI can actually reach population, to Rania's point. We can now reach those patients that, didn't have health insurance, didn't really have access. AI is now at the front line. And AI is getting to what we call the invisible population, and I'm really excited about this.
I love this theme that's arising of AI actually expanding care and expanding populations that we can't reach before. I think that's really an amazing thing that will really help a lot of people. So wonderful.
And just tying on, I love the increasing access, but at some point comes the question, like, how do we pay for this? So Kester, I know you have some experience with your screening methods, or at least identifying disease processes. I love the fact that AI is making us superpower, super doctors, so to speak, but how are we going to, at the end, afford these options?
Yeah, it's definitely a pertinent question for a healthcare provider who utilizes AI on a daily basis. Is that when we're talking to Medicare about the use of AI as part of the service, it actually starts with making the data available for the AI. So if we use remote monitoring devices, it's the upload of the data to a cloud, which either happens through a cellular service or through a Wi-Fi connection. We're sort of obligated in a way to provide that cellular connectivity, which we do to our patients. Then once we have the data on the cloud, it needs to be processed and stored, and only then it becomes actionable for the physician. So really presenting this whole cost rubric to Medicare when new billing codes for remote monitoring service are being valued, that is really an open frontier. And I don't think it's fully solved yet. There have been a lot of initiatives to probably recognize these costs that are associated, Right now, everyone sort of looks at the device cost, at the key ingredient, but that's in a way a one-time cost. Your data, that is, accumulated on a daily basis, and that needs to be recognized also in that service that is provided on a monthly basis. So yeah, we have experience in our FRCS Home program. It's baked in. We're happy with the reimbursement that we receive there on the home OCT. Once the product is approved, then those will be some very important conversations to have with Medicare of how they account for the costs of managing and processing that data with AI.
And Rania, you had a follow-up comment.
Yeah, so Kester, I'm glad you brought that up because RPM is actually reimbursable and it can be a moneymaker for practice. So it is important for you to point that out. But I think here's where the concept of sick care versus well care comes into focus. Our payers will be very happy about the preventative care and the lower cost of treating these things. I mean, I think Dr. Ho, you brought up earlier, at what point do we start shifting from treating advanced geographic atrophy to catching it earlier and then preventing all of those side effects later on and all of those costs that build up? So I think that needs to go into the equation about how we pay for these types of technologies. And I think payers are starting to understand that a little bit more now.
I have a question for Vivek. Are all of us physicians going to be replaced by computers one day? Is that where AI is currently going? Because I'm looking at the results that you're showing of the AI algorithm being able to take the step one and do expert level. How far down that path do you think things are going to go?
I think whatever I say, it's going to be the wrong answer over here. No, but I think from my perspective, there are two things over here that's immediately on the horizon. I firmly believe that the standard of care should no longer be a human physician alone. It should be a human physician augmented by hopefully a MedPalm, or a GPT-4 or any other AI system. We obviously need a lot more rigorous, validation studies and proof points to be able to show that. But we are in the process of doing that, and hopefully we'll have proof points showing that yes, this is indeed possible. The standard of care should now be human plus an AI, and I see that happening in pretty much organically in the next 1, 2, 3 years. And then the other aspect is around access to care and equity as well. I think the way things are progressing with AI, and I think we are in this paradigm where we are going to be able to show these models, cases, and scenarios, simulated patients with different, demographics, with different case histories, with different symptoms. And so if you look at medical training and what sort of training that people undergo in medical school, you see a limited number of cases, and during the course of your lifetime, again, a limited number of cases. And so an interesting anecdote over here is I was asking my dear colleague and friend Alan, who I work very closely with over here, if you have a choice between two doctors, which one should you prefer? And he said, go to the one with the more gray hair, because experience is everything in medicine. And so we can scale up experience to a manner never seen before. Imagine millions of cases, billions of scenarios. And so that is where we are trending with AI. This thing never tires. So we can keep on training it, keep on giving it demonstrations, expert demonstrations, feedback via simulations. And so this thing is obviously going to be on a trajectory of getting better and better over time. And so I don't know the future, but maybe in 10 years we stop sending people to medical school. That's a blasphemy over here. But it's mostly, I think, the kind of training that people undergo in medical school will change. I think AI is going to be a base part of the curriculum. So
maybe giving even novice doctors the ability to have that expert backup in the form of AI. So.
Wonderful.
Well, actually, there's even more to that. So using digital twinning, which I think you started to talk about a little bit, now we have actual real analytics around some of the treatments that we can offer patients. Much more informed decision making.
Definitely fantastic. I wish we had more time to discuss some of my additional topics. And thank you, Khizer, and thank you, Victor, for contributing as well. Fantastic talks. Thank you to all the panelists. It was a real pleasure to have you here, and we're looking forward to our next session. And I'll invite Charlie to come join us up here on the stage.
As well as Arsham, so please come on up. Thank you guys very much.